Equal pay for men and women. U.S. soccer, both sides of the ball there are getting equal pay, Greg. On a first level, obviously this is amazing news. We're all very happy about it. On the second level, I do want to say I think it's super interesting because every time there is an actual argument for something that is progressive, the reaction is, will that hurt what they're trying to reach? So, for example, if women get paid equal as men, is that going to hurt men's price tag due to eyes on the sport, all that bullshit that never happens? Here's the one thing I will say. I would be floored if the men's team wasn't so geeked about this for the women's team, because the men pushed to get to where they are being paid. The women now are pushed to there as well. It's an amazing thing. Way too long. I understand people talk, well, blah, blah, blah. You're all idiots because they've won how many major championships at this point? World Cups, titles. I mean, the MLS.
Olympics,
I mean, if you think about the women's side of the MLS, like, I would argue, like, because EPL has obviously, and the German league have amazing women's divisions. The I don't think I know there's NWSL, or no, that's not it. Is it?
That's what it is. Yeah.
Is that okay?
That's
thank
what it
you.
is. Yeah.
What a jagoff I am for just touting it and then forgetting the name really quick.
It's all right,
but they have great storylines, great athletes. They have a ton of people coming out of college game, going to it, performing very well. This is massive for sports across the board.
Yeah, and something that I also think was credit to the women's national team too, because of the fact that the reason that this became such a massive topic from the get-go is just because how dominant they are to begin with. Like, this is like the most, I mean, when you think about our country, when you think about athletes in general and homegrown athletes and representing our country on an international footprint, who's better than the U.S. women's national team in soccer? Yep. Like, come on. No one even comes close to touching them. So the fact that this kind of came about was awesome to hear. I was curious because, and I still don't understand how the actual like revenue breakdown is even brought up with regards to the World Cup stuff in general. But I do appreciate the fact too that we're now getting to this point, because it's something that I believe every single female soccer player beforehand was fighting for the longest time, and they truly are. For lack of a better phrase, like, they are truly better than the male athletes. Like, we have been catching up for a while to get up to that level where we can even compete that far. So the fact that we are now there is awesome to see. Yes. And people forget about this too. Like, a lot of the female athletes that you see on the U.S. women's national team, they're playing in the NWSL.
Yes.
Like, this isn't like the men's national team, which is spread around the country to get more better experience. No, like, the women are still like in their domestic league right now. So the more eyeballs you get on that, the more investment that you're willing to kind of get into that, the more likely that league is going to grow and it's going to flourish, and it's going to be a massive boost for women's soccer in general and the sport in general. So It's been a long time coming, and I'm thrilled that this finally happened.
My mom writes in, hell yes, hell yeah, mommy. Here is the other side of the coin, Greg, that I'm excited about. What does this mean for other professional? So this isn't just for the record, this is the U.S. national team, not NWSL, right? This isn't America. Right. This is the national team. So what does this mean for the WNBA, who has been extremely vocal about what they deserve and what they've earned up to that point? And I also think this could finally be, I mean, I'm a massive fan of certain individuals at Barstool, and their CEO has pushed and pushed and pushed for women's hockey to be massive. So these types of decisions on a national level might not trickle down into the individual leagues due to the leagues being private entities, but there is an honest precedent for the women's basketball team to do it. Incentives then, which this is an incentive to play for the national team. This is an incentive to make the national team. So I'm excited to see how it impacts other women's sports in America.
I agree with that. And credit to this too, because the WNBA, especially the players in general, have been very vocal lately about kind of the issues that they've seen for a while now. Like, I've touched on this before previously about how they just got a lot of funding for the league and all that over the last couple of years. So there's been investment into it. So there is something to be said for that, but they're still a ways away. People forget about WNBA has only been around for 25 years and it's made progress, but it's nowhere near some of the progress that maybe we kind of see in other leagues.
Agreed.
But then if you think about it, those other leagues have been around for 70 to 100 years at that point. So there's a lot more growth that has to come with the WNBA. And I hope, and I really do hope in all seriousness, that we get to a point where the WNBA is profitable enough and investors kind of see how much can come from it, that maybe the league eventually does expand, because that's something that I think that's something that is needed for a while. Because I think they only have 12 teams right now.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I think this is obviously, an amazing topic, amazing discussion in terms of what is going to come from this, and I think that it does happen at a point, Greg, where we are about to get into. Obviously, we're 7 months away from the Men's World Cup. I'm interested to see if there is any trickle down in terms of other countries' women's teams as well. You would assume that other countries such as England, who have a predominantly strong, a very talented year after year women's team. Canada's another one that always has a very talented team. I'm interested. Yeah. I mean, Brazil and Japan.
I think we're the only country. I think we're the only country that has that set up where it's like that. Yeah,
100% would assume so. But not assume so because we're America, but assume so because this is such a massive push recently that they have been leveraging the men's pay for what they deserve, as opposed to leveraging if there was another female organization paying. So like if there was, for example, England can now go and say, look, they're getting equal pay. We don't want what the U.S. men have. We want what the U.S. women have. It's like, it makes the argument a little bit more justifiable on a legal standing. Yeah. So I'm interested to see if other countries do follow suit.
And if anything, if these other countries do try to do something similar to that, if the results make it worthy of it too, which is the key. So if we end up in a situation too where because if I remember off the top of my head, like some of the teams that beat the U.S. women's national team, like I remember Japan did it a few years ago. I know England always has a good team. I know Brazil always has a good team. Like if they can consistently kind of compete with the upper echelon, because that's something that we can take pride in with the U.S. women's national team, is that they are the gold standard when it comes to women's soccer in the world. So if you have anyone start to catch up to them, then they deserve to be on that equal playing field as well, which is when that conversation can then be brought up, hopefully, in that case.
Yep. Agreed, man. Agreed. Anything else you want to say on the topic before we move on here, Greg? Obviously, we both agree this is wonderful, amazing, and we're excited to see what comes from it.
Just honestly, the perspective too is that I truly believe that if you invest in women's sports, that it will go a long way eventually. Not just the NWSL, but also the WNBA, and then also the Women's Hockey League as well, because they are also some very fun games to be watching. And if you get more coverage, if you give them the rights to deserve, like if you watch ESPN on times, they are giving coverage to WNBA now more often than not, which is big because that's something that they were struggling with for a while. So the more eyeballs that's on it, the more times it's covered, the more times it's given the press, the more opportunity that you get for them to get more attraction and more attention that is on that league in general, which will be big in the long run.